Hello, welcome to another video. Please like, share and subscribe for more amazing story. True God in Another Worlds, Tensura x Tbate, by Tempest_King_20. Chapter 42 Zyrus Academy. Arthur Lewin Pov. Wake up! A thunderous shout pierced through the haze of my dreams, jolting me from my slumber. The forceful wave of sound crashed against the walls of my skull, shaking me from within. Air was abruptly expelled from my lungs as Elijah pounded my sternum, his hands crashing against my chest with the force capable of resuscitating a corpse. Pain shot through my body, electric and sharp, stealing my breath in a gasp. I jolted awake, my heart pounding and my body struggling to adjust to the sudden intrusion. Disoriented, I blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of my surroundings. There has got to be a better way to wake me up besides physical pain, I grumbled, rubbing my stomach tenderly, feeling the dull ache. You're telling me? Do you know how hard it is to wake you up? Elijah rolled his eyes, irritation evident in his voice. But a small grin tugged at the corners of his mouth, betraying his true amusement. Anyways, we're going to be late if you don't hurry up and get ready. I've already washed up, so get your butt out of bed. Elijah stood on top of my rumpled sheets, pushing me off with his foot. Brother, are you awake? Ellie's voice rang out, a sweet melody breaking through our morning haze. She opened the door as I was changing. Elijah was at least fully dressed, his figure a stark contrast to my half-clothed state. How do you like your big brother's awesome muscles? I flexed my body in various poses, trying to inject some levity into the morning. Ew. All I see are skin and bones, brother. She just shook her head with playful disbelief, giving me a hard stare that seemed to question whether I was the same brother she so admired back on her birthday. Unlike Brother Ree, you never seem to grow any muscles. Ellie continued, unperturbed by my momentary melancholy. Anyway, Mom told you guys to hurry up and get dressed so we can eat. With that, she closed the door behind her, her small figure moving with determination. A sigh escaped my lips as I started buttoning my shirt, the fabric cool against my skin. Memories of Ellie's birthday party flooded my mind, the image of her laughter and innocence etched into my heart. Kids grow up too fast, I lamented, a bittersweet longing pulsating within me. The uniforms that Zyrus had sent us weren't too out of the ordinary. For me, it consisted of a white dress shirt, a gray vest, a maroon string we tied around our necks underneath the collar, and a pair of tailored navy dress pants. There was also a gold pocket watch attached to a chain on my vest's breast pocket, overall giving me a very scholarly look. Elijah's uniform, on the other hand, had a much sharper design. His black blazer had white trimmings that matched his black pants. Instead of a string, he wore a black square-end tie with one white stripe, indicating that he was a level 1 student. With his white dress shirt underneath and a badge with a crossed sword and staff etched intricately over the breast pocket, he looked dashing. Instead of the usual tools a conjurer may use, Elijah, instead, fashioned a black 2-part band on his index and ring finger. These 2 bands were connected by a thin black chain, which gave him a gothic look, especially now that he recently purchased new glasses that were a bit more fashionable. He made it pretty clear to me that this would be his debut in finding a girlfriend, so he took great pride in how he looked, although he always grumbled on about how no matter how much he tried, he wouldn't be as good looking as me. What can I say? I need to thank Mother and Father for their genes. Taking a good look at both Elijah and myself in the mirror, I could tell how much we've matured physically. The once nerdy Elijah from 2 years ago was now gone, a more sharp and cold look replacing it, which oddly contradicted from his personality. As for myself, my eyes were a rich sapphire color that almost seemed to glow. My hair was a fiery auburn color that contrasted well with my eyes. Bluish eyes and reddish hair made me realize how coincidental it all was. What are the odds that my defining traits aligned with the 2 base elements I was most adept at? My facial features were a lot softer compared to Elijah's, but while soft and kind, it looked poised and elegant. I looked and studied my face as if it wasn't my own. Even after 12 years in this body, I wasn't used to my appearance compared to the rather normal face I had in my old world. Are you sure you made the right choice, Art? I can't believe you wanted to go in as a scholar mage. I thought you would for sure go in as a battle mage like me, Elijah remarked, his words mingling with the melody of his fingers styling his hair. The trimmed, straight black hair that he had was now shorter and styled to the side, revealing his strong jawline. And I can't believe one of the main reasons you wanted to attend Zyrus as a battle mage student was because it had cuter girls. I slapped him firmly on the back, the sound resonating through the room, a playful smile escaping my lips.
Shut up. Just watch. The new and improved Elijah will be popular and find a girlfriend that can only make you drool in jealousy. He adjusted his blazer, taking one last look at himself in the mirror. His confident gaze met mine, a spark of determination shining through. Obviously satisfied by his appearance, he walked towards the door, his steps purposeful and confident, while I followed.
You boys took an eternity to get ready. Who exactly are you trying to impress? My mother admonished us with a wag of her finger as we finally descended into the warmth of the kitchen. Aunt Tabitha, donning an apron identical to my mother's, couldn't help but giggle, her eyes twinkling mischievously. Hey, I guess they're just trying to impress the ladies, Mom, chimed in, a mischievous smirk dancing across his lips. His long locks of blue-silver hair cascaded gracefully around his shoulders, shimmering like a moonlit waterfall. The mischievous glint in his golden eyes added to his charm, making it hard to resist his playful nature. I rolled my eyes, attempting to appear nonchalant as I sank into the plush leather chair at the breakfast table. Don't listen to him, Mom. We simply want to make a good impression on the faculty, I explained, my fingers adjusting my tie in an attempt to appear more put together, more confident. Good morning, boys. Now hurry up and eat, Aunt Tabitha chimed in, taking her seat across from us beside Mother and Ellie. Her enthusiasm radiated through her vibrant blue eyes. Lily, are you heading up on stage today? Aunt Tabitha asked, her voice filled with genuine interest. Yes, since I'm part of the student council, Lilia nodded confidently, her hazel eyes shimmering with a potent blend of determination and excitement. She exuded an air of authority, a regal presence in the impeccable attire of a female battle mage. The cloak of the esteemed student council graced her shoulders like a regal cape, further amplifying her regal demeanor. Her luscious brown hair was meticulously tied into a neat ponytail, accentuating her sharp features and adding an extra hint of gallantry to her overall appearance.
And she's the vice president. Beside her, Seal chimed in with a subtle interjection, her attention still intently focused on her plate. Cascading waves of silver tresses framed her countenance, bestowing her with an elegant yet resolute aura. Her own uniform mirrored Lilia's.
Wow, I had no idea, Elijah exclaimed, his eyes unknowingly captivated by Lilia's poise and determination. Oh, I see you guys are wearing the necklaces I gave you, I remarked, my voice muffled by a mouthful of food, as I gestured to the delicate pieces of jewelry adorned around their necks. Yup. Why wouldn't I when it's such a beautiful piece of jewelry? I wish your father had half the amount of sense that you do. Mother sighed wistfully, her fingers delicately playing with the intricate phoenix worm pendant that rested against her chest. All my friends are jealous because of how pretty it is. Be sure to get me things like these more, okay brother? Ellie leaned forward on her chair as she talked excitedly, her long grayish-brown hair brushing against her shoulders. You too, brother Ree. The magic accessories are also beautiful. Sure, I dismissed, a faint smile tugging at the corners of my lips. The pendant was indeed a precious and beautiful gift, but I couldn't help but internally calculate the cost of such a luxurious item. Sure, anything for my little princess, Ree smiled, his eyes filled with genuine affection as he looked at our little sister with adoration. You too, Sylvie, he added, patting Sylvie who was perched contently beside him. Thank you, Papa. Sylvie beamed, her gold eyes twinkling with delight, happy to be included in the conversation. I couldn't help but chuckle at how easily Ree was swayed by Ellie's and Sylvie's words, his heart melting at their every request. My father came in, his face glistening with sweat from his training session. Sorry I'm late for breakfast. I got carried away with my training. He eagerly sat down and looked at us. His forehead was covered with a thin layer of perspiration and his hair was slightly tousled.
A warm smile spread across his face as he surveyed the breakfast table. Wow, it's hard to believe my 3 boys are already heading off to school. It feels like just yesterday we were teaching Arthur and Rimuru to walk, he mused, his voice tinged with both pride and nostalgia. He turned to my mother, his eyes sparkling mischievously. I suppose we did raise them well, didn't we, honey?
My mother chuckled softly, her eyes dancing with amusement as she retorted, What do you mean? I recall doing most of the work in raising them. I guess the only times I raised my children were when they got into trouble then. My father raised a brow, his eyes twinkling with amusement. My mother maintained a matter-of-fact expression, her lips curved in a sly smile. Well, as long as you know, she responded, her tone carrying a hint of playful banter, causing the whole table to erupt in laughter. Turning the conversation towards my sister, I directed my attention to Ellie. Are you excited for tomorrow, Ellie? I asked, my gaze filled with anticipation. A beam of excitement lit up Ellie's face as she responded, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. Oh, I can't wait. I wished I could join you all today, but I suppose one more day won't hurt, she chimed in eagerly, pushing her chair back from the table. Tomorrow marked the beginning of Ellie's training at the academy under the director's wing, fulfilling the promise made by the director.
Just as we were engrossed in our conversation, Julia, one of my brother's maids, entered the room, her presence exuding a sense of grace and respect. In a soft, gentle tone, she spoke, "Pardon the interruption, young masters and ladies. The driver has informed me that if you wish to arrive on time for the orientation ceremony, we should depart now." Elijah jumped up from his chair, clearly eager to get a move on. "Well then, off we go," he exclaimed, hastily finishing the last morsel of his ham and shoveling some greens into his mouth before rising abruptly. With a sense of urgency, I pushed my own chair back and made my way around the table to where my mother and sister sat. "Mom, Ellie," I began, my voice filled with a mixture of seriousness and tenderness. "Before I leave, I need you guys to show me your index finger for a bit." "What is it, dear?" My mother looked at me, confused, but nevertheless showed me her index finger while my sister unhesitatingly followed suit. Gently, yet purposefully, I brought my mana-imbued finger to each of their index fingers, lightly poking them so that a small droplet of blood formed on their fingertips. "Take the blood and place it on your necklaces," I instructed, my voice steady and determined. The seriousness in my voice made them silently concede despite their initial surprise. They both placed their index fingers on their respective necklaces and the blood on the tip of their fingers got absorbed into the jewel immediately. "These necklaces are now bound to you so only you two can wear them. They'll protect you just in case me or dad isn't there, but still keep yourselves safe while I'm gone, okay?" I gave the both of them a strong hug and hugged my father and Aunt Tabitha as well, my father holding me firmly in his strong arms. My father looked solemn as he spoke, "Be good boys, and don't worry about us." I could see the hint of sadness in his eyes, and it made me feel a bit guilty for leaving them behind. A bittersweet smile adorned my mother's face as she stepped forward, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Her attempt to lift our spirits was evident as she spoke with an air of reassurance. "Come visit whenever you can," she said, her voice tinged with a touch of longing, "and keep in touch." As she reached out to hug us both, I could sense the depth of her love in that embrace, and I held on tightly. "We will," Ree responded, his voice filled with determination. Stepping forward, he wrapped our little sister in a protective embrace, his touch both gentle and comforting. "I'll be there to pick you up myself tomorrow," he promised, his hand patting her on the head. "You'll be training with Cynthia and Sylvie when Art and I aren't around, okay?" A spark of excitement danced in my sister's eyes as she nodded eagerly. "Okay," she exclaimed, her arms clutching Sylvie. Leaning in, she whispered conspiratorially, "Let's walk around together there, Sylvie, okay?" A grin brightened Sylvie's face, their thoughts already drifting towards the adventures they would embark upon in the academy. "Of course," Sylvie responded with equal enthusiasm, her eyes gleaming with a shared sense of camaraderie. As we made our way towards the waiting carriage, the drive greeted us with a respectful bow. "Your luggage is in the back of the carriage," he informed us in a deep, soothing voice. With a flourish, he opened the door for us, revealing the interior lined with plush cushions and the faint, inviting scent of fine leather. Destination: Zyrus Academy. Elijah's voice resonated with determination, his finger pointing towards the endless expanse of the sky as if making a declaration before getting inside the carriage. I eagerly settled into my seat, followed closely by my friends. As we made ourselves comfortable, Sylvie leapt towards us from her perch and playfully perched herself on Ciel's lap. The raucous chatter filled the air as we eagerly anticipated our arrival at the grandiose Zyrus Academy. Though the school was located in the same bustling city, The time it took from entering the opulent property to reaching the entrance gate was considerable, a testament to the sheer expanse of the academy. I knew that Zyrus was a huge flying city, but the fact that the only educational institution within it reached such enormous proportions only confirmed that this was a place for the elite, the pinnacle of academic achievement. Turning towards Ri, I couldn't help but inquire about his position within the academy. So, Ri, what role do you play here? I asked, my curiosity piqued. A mischievous grin danced upon Ri's lips, adding to the air of intrigue that surrounded him. Ah, my dear brother, that is a secret I hold close, he replied, his voice tinged with a hint of mystery. But I assure you, the answer to your question will reveal itself soon enough. Elijah, unable to contain his astonishment, chimed in, I still can't wrap my mind around the fact that you and Lilia have become students under the guidance of the esteemed director at the most renowned academy on the entire continent. Ri chuckled, his laughter a melodious echo within the luxurious confines of the carriage. Indeed, my friend, he responded, his voice carrying a subtle note of gratitude. It is all thanks to my uncle Vincent. He shares a close friendship with Principal Cynthia, and through his influence, he managed to secure our enrollment. We exchanged knowing glances, silently acknowledging the truth that remained veiled from Elijah. It was a secret we upheld, respecting Ri's wish to keep Elijah or anyone other than our family in the dark. Yes, indeed, I muttered under my breath, my words laced with an undercurrent of understanding. I turned my gaze out of the carriage window, captivated by the breathtaking sight that unfolded before me. Countless extravagantly decorated carriages, some twice the length of normal carriages, adorned with ornate carvings and shimmering crystal accents, lined the grand boulevard. Magnificent low-ranked mana beasts, their majestic presence undeniable, pulled these conveyances with confident grace, their intricate harnesses gleaming in the sunlight. Master Rimuru, Master Arthur, Master Elijah, Miss Lilia, Miss Seal. We have arrived, announced the driver, respectfully opening the door for us to disembark. Huh, the air tastes the same here. Thought it'd taste better, Elijah remarked, smacking his lips in mock disappointment. Rolling my eyes, I nudged him forward to keep the momentum going. Don't be foolish, I chided gently. Holy mother of. Elijah's jaw dropped as he looked almost vertically up at the building in front of us. The enormous white building that had runes etched covering it left even me astounded. Let's not stand here gawking. Ri snapped his fingers, catching Elijah's attention. We made our way through the large entrance gate, joining the stream of new students. The atmosphere was electric, filled with a mix of nervousness and excitement. I noticed Lilia and Seal ahead, completely engrossed in conversation. Their animated gestures and infectious laughter drew everyone's attention. But just as their conversation was reaching its peak, Lilia abruptly halted in her tracks, her attention shifting towards our approach. She turned towards us with a bright smile, her eyes filled with determination as she announced, "Then I will go now. We still need to prepare for today's speech. See you all later, bye." Ri, affectionately patting Lilia's head, chimed in with a tender voice, "Okay, take care, Lily." Lilia's smile widened, a light blush tinging her cheeks, before she turned on her heels and hurried off towards the stage's back door. She seemed so determined, her steps were quick and purposeful. Are you sure they're not dating? Elijah whispered, his voice laced with curiosity, as if desperate to unravel the mystery behind their close bond. I shrugged as I replied, as far as I know, they aren't. But the uncertainty in my voice was evident, leaving a lingering doubt in the air. Elijah scraped, his eyes scanning the surroundings as we continued toward the entrance gate. The gate stood tall, adorned with intricate ironwork, a symbol of the prestigious school we were about to enter. As we strolled along, several elves dressed in elegant robes immediately recognized Ri, their eyes lighting up with excitement and admiration. They rushed towards us, their smiles warm and genuine. Master Rimuru. Oh, what an absolute honor it is to see you again. Proclaimed one of the elves, her voice infused with awe and adoration. Her lustrous orange locks cascaded down her slender shoulders, framing her delicate, porcelain-like features. Ri's face lit up with a gentle smile, his gaze meets the elf's with a profound sense of connection. Good to see you too, Sharia, he greeted her affectionately, their eyes locked in a meaningful exchange that went beyond mere acquaintances. Sensing this introduction as an opportunity, Ri turned to me, his voice filled with warmth. Let me introduce her to you. This is Sharia. We have crossed paths a few times. I nodded politely. My eyes met Sharia's with a kind smile. Nice to meet you, Sharia, I said, extending my hand towards her. Sharia delicately took my hand, her touch gentle yet firm, conveying a sense of grace and elegance. It's a pleasure to meet you too, Mr. Arthur. Sharia's voice carries the warmth and friendliness of a genuine greeting. Master Rimuru has told us so much about you. Glancing at Ri, a playful gleam appeared in my eyes as I responded, oh, has he now? Hopefully, it's all good things. Ri exclaimed, giving me a light nudge. Of course, only the finest details, he teased. Sharia then introduced us to the other elves accompanying her. These are my friends, Sir Chris and Lady Amelia. They are also new students here, like yourselves. It's a pleasure to meet you. Chris greeted us with a friendly smile, extending his hand towards us. Amelia followed suit, her bright smile adding a touch of charm to the encounter. As our conversation continued, more elf students began to gather around us, their footsteps barely audible on the immaculate stone paths. Their eager faces betrayed their curiosity as they strained their necks for a glimpse of Rimuru. The energy in the air was palpable, a mixture of awe and reverence for the hero figure in their presence. We should probably head to the orientation hall soon, Rhys said, glancing at his watch. We don't want to be late. Understanding the urgency, I nodded in agreement. You're right. It has been such a pleasure meeting all of you. Perhaps we'll have the chance to cross paths again. Sharia's smile was warm and genuine as she responded, definitely, it would be an honor. Until then, farewell. With a graceful bow, Sharia and her companions bid us farewell, their ethereal beauty fading into the distance. Rhee's gaze lingered on them for a moment. Elijah looked surprised and asked, what was that all about? Rhee, his gaze still fixed on the departing elves, began to explain, his voice tinged with nostalgia. Well, during our time in the Elven Kingdom, we got to know these people. They are some of the individuals I interacted with. Arthur can provide you with more details later. Elijah nodded as we made our way into the grand entrance of the building. As we stepped through the ornate doors of the auditorium, a wave of sound crashed over us, sending my senses into a frenzy. The enthusiastic chatter of thousands of students reverberated through the air, blending together into a chaotic symphony of excitement and anticipation. Conversations buzzed with energy, filling every nook and cranny of the colossal room. Groups of students were scattered throughout the space, completely absorbed in animated discussions with their familiar companions. Their faces were alive with anticipation, exchanging stories and plans for the upcoming year. Elsewhere, strangers eagerly struck up conversations with each other, their voices mingling and intertwining to create a vibrant tapestry of sound. Let's find a seat, I shouted at the top of my lungs, desperate to make myself heard above the clamor. After what felt like an eternity, we finally managed to secure a seat in the middle of the auditorium, nestled among the back rows. The sea of students stretched out before us, a mosaic of diverse faces and robes. Eventually, reactivated a sound barrier, creating a pocket of tranquility amidst the boisterous atmosphere. Wow, I've never seen full elves until now. Looks like it's true that all three races can fully attend this academy now, Elijah remarked, his voice infused with awe as he surveyed the crowd. His eyes darted from face to face, searching for potential connections and allies. Meanwhile, Rhee was engaged in a lively conversation with Seal. Feeling restless, I shifted my gaze towards the stage, which remained empty except for a solitary podium bathed in soft spotlights. The anticipation in the air was almost tangible, hanging like a thick fog over the crowd. Suddenly, a sharp blur resolved into the figure of Director Goodsky, standing resolutely behind the podium. Gone was her usual oversized hat, replaced instead by an elegant white circlet that perfectly complemented her pristine white robe. With this change in attire, Director Goodsky exuded an air of refinement, dispelling the witch-like impression she had left on me during our first encounter 5 years ago. The intricate patterns on her robe shimmered under the glow of the stage lights, adding to her aura of authority. Her eyes were closed, but when she opened them, it felt as if she was piercing through the crowd, locking her gaze directly onto mine. A shiver ran down my spine as her lips curled into an enigmatic smile, sending a surge of anticipation coursing through me. Slowly, deliberately, she raised her hand, her eyes never leaving mine. By this time, many more of the incoming first-year students had taken notice of her presence and began to talk even louder, their voices mingling and rising in excitement. The undercurrent of anticipation and curiosity permeated the room, buzzing like electricity in the air. However, as Director Goodsky's hand reached the level of her head, a hush fell over the auditorium. The sudden silence was palpable, like the stillness before a storm. It spread like a ripple, engulfing the space as if a collective breath was being held. The auditorium, once filled with a cacophony of noise, now became a canvas of anticipation, waiting to be painted with the director's words. Excuse me for my rudeness, but I do hate speaking up. Not good for my throat. No, it is not. Director Goodsky's mellifluous voice floated through the air, soft and pleasant, yet carrying an undeniable authority. Her words effortlessly traversed the vast expanse of the auditorium, reaching even the farthest corners of the back row where we sat. The quiet clarity of her voice sliced through the lingering silence, commanding the complete attention of every student in the room. I welcome everyone here, the future leaders, scholars, and esteemed houses of Decathan, to this humble academy, she continued, her tone warm and inviting.
I am Cynthia Goodsky. Please call me Director Goodsky, and do not hesitate to approach me when I walk around campus. I am no good with grandiose speeches, so I stand here before you, esteemed mages, today simply to say hello and introduce to you the members of the Student Council who represent this academy and participate in making crucial decisions alongside me. Please give them a warm and hearty welcome. With a graceful and fluid wave of her upraised hand, Director Goodsky signaled for the members of the Student Council to take the stage. One by one, they emerged from behind the opulent velvet curtains, their commanding presence capturing the immediate attention and evoking a spectrum of reactions from the enthralled audience.
First, we saw two guys walking there. One of them was a pretty boy that made a lot of girls scream as if he was the most elegant one. The other behind him was a very playful, cherry guy that came out waving at the audience and beaming us a bright smile. Next, a tall and austere figure stepped forward. His long, sleek hair was meticulously parted, framing his face in what appeared to be a perpetually stern expression, his intense gaze seemingly casting judgment upon the onlookers. Though the applause for him lacked the same overwhelming exuberance, he, nonetheless, strode with practiced grace. Behind him, it was Lilia's turn to grace the stage, her mere presence instantly quieting the entire hall. Her chestnut brown hair was meticulously braided into a sleek ponytail that cascaded over her shoulders, framing her composed and regal visage. Her eyes, ressemblant of a feline, swept across the vast sea of faces, taking in each individual with an astute assessment. There was an undeniable aura of newfound dignity and respect emanating from her, a subtle transformation that seemed to signify a departure from the Lilia I had thought I knew. As her gaze scanned the crowd, her eyes locked onto us, or more specifically, my brother. With bated breath, I watched as a smile tugged at the corners of Lilia's lips, a smile that grew gradually brighter. In response, returned the smile with equal warmth, his eyes softening and radiating affection as they locked with hers in a silent exchange of understanding. And then, it was Lilia's turn to grace the grand stage, her mere presence casting a hushed reverence over the entire hall. Her cascading chestnut brown hair was artfully woven into an intricate braid, each strand obediently following the sleek curve down her back. It framed her composed and regal visage, accentuating the sharp, piercing gaze of her feline-like eyes. She surveyed the vast sea of faces before her, her astute assessment evident in the way her eyes swept over each individual with a discerning poise. There was an undeniable transformation in her, a newfound dignity and gravitas that seemed to emerge from within, a departure from the Lilia I once thought I had known. As her gaze swept over the crowd, her eyes found us, or rather, my brother. I observed as a smile slowly curled up the corners of her lips, a smile that radiated warmth, affection, and genuine happiness. Ree's eyes softened, reflecting that same affection, warmth, and pride, as they met hers in a silent exchange of understanding and connection. Finally, after a seemingly eternal pause that held the previously boisterous crowd in rapt anticipation, a figure emerged from the shadows, sending a collective gasp rippling through the audience. The soft beams of the theater lights danced playfully upon her unruly locks, casting an ethereal gunmetal silver glow, as if she carried the moonlight with her. Her ethereal complexion, peachy cream and porcelain smooth, radiated an otherworldly serenity that captivated the hearts of not only the boys around me but everyone present within the auditorium. As she turned to face the expectant audience, her eyes, round and captivating in a mesmerizing shade of turquoise, seemed to possess an enchanting power, drawing in every gaze and locking the hearts of those who dared to meet her gaze. She couldn't have been more than 13, could she? Yet, as I struggled to reconcile the image of the girl I once knew as a mere child with the mesmerizing presence that stood before us, it became apparent that there was an inexplicable maturity in her demeanor that transcended her age. While remnants of her youthful innocence still lingered upon her face, there was a certain air of wisdom and composure that made it difficult to believe this was the same girl from our near toddler days. Comparatively taller compared to Lilia, she was quite a bit shorter than the serious-looking guy next to her. However, it was her commanding posture and a mystical air of enchantment that set her apart, emanating a blazing presence that surpassed anyone else on the stage. With a graceful bow, she rose back up, a strand of her striking hair deftly tucked behind delicately pointed ears. Her countenance remained poised, her expression an enigmatic mask, akin to that of a porcelain doll, hinting at a depth of wisdom and maturity beyond her years. "My name is Tessia Aerolith," she began, her voice carrying an authority that belied her youthful stature, her crystal-clear elocution resonating through the grand auditorium. "And I am deeply honored to stand before you today as this Academy's Student Council President." Murmurs started after the crowd once again cheered for our beautiful president. Next to me, a scrawny human boy spoke excitedly to his friend beside him. Hey, you see her? That's Princess Aerolith the First was telling you about," he exclaimed, his face lighting up like a child who had just discovered a treasure trove. "My older brother told me she's been on campus since last year, training under the director himself. And guess what? She'll be joining us this year as a formal student." The boy leaned in close to his friend, his words dripping with uncontained enthusiasm, oblivious to the inquisitive gazes of their peers around them. The students nearby couldn't help but eavesdrop, their curiosity piqued by the conversation unfolding beside them. That means she was the first non-human to set foot on this campus," his friend responded with a hushed tone, their excitement growing with each passing word. "Wait, she's only a first year and she's already the student council president. Is that even possible?" As his voice grew louder, the whispers of intrigue and surprise multiplied, cascading like a wave through the gathering of students. Yeah, that's her," chimed in another observer eagerly adding to the unfolding discourse. Their eyes glimmered with the thrill of knowing something worthy of being told and retold. "I've heard rumors about her too. They say she's a super genius or something, with talents that surpass even the most accomplished students here." The whispers crescendoed, a symphony of astonishment and admiration reverberating through the hall, each student finding it impossible to resist the allure of the extraordinary tale that was weaving its way through their midst. Intrigue mixed with a tinge of envy as they shared tidbits of gossip, their voices creating a steady hum of anticipatory chatter. "I can't believe she's both talented and gorgeous," one girl muttered, her voice laced with a mix of admiration and envy. "It's just not fair." Her eyes lingered on Tess, her features radiant with poise and grace, her every movement embodying a captivating allure that drew the gaze of all who beheld her. The auditorium was abuzz with excitement as conversations filled the surrounding space, merging into a harmonious chorus of agreements and murmured wonderings. With the topic of conversation shifting to Tess and Lilia, disciples of the director. "True, but don't forget about Lilia Helstia," a voice interjected, breaking through the hum of voices. "She's the director's other disciple, you know." Yes, I've heard about her too," another student chimed in. "Seems like the director has quite the eye for talent. Two disciples, both extraordinary in their own right." Whispers of approval and admiration positioned Tess and Lilia on a pedestal of unattainable stardom. The boys found themselves in awe of these remarkable individuals, their minds grappling with the seemingly insurmountable heights these disciples had reached. Meanwhile, the girls found themselves torn between idolizing them and longing for their own share of success and recognition. Whoa! Elijah, who I had stopped paying attention to, firmly gripped my arm with both hands, as if he needed my support to prevent himself from fainting. His grip was so tight that it made me wonder how someone who appeared so intelligent could also act like such an idiot in moments like these. "Whoa," he repeated, his voice filled with astonishment. I lightly nudged his head, attempting to snap him out of his daze, but it only resulted in his head bouncing like a bobblehead toy. Concerned, I called out to him, "You okay there, Elijah?" The words seemed to momentarily register in his mind, as he suddenly released my arm and instead linked his own with mine, envisioning me as Tess, perhaps. Art. I think I'm in love, he confessed breathlessly, his infatuation shining in his eyes. But before I could react, instinct took over and I swiftly hit him on the back of his head, hoping to jolt him out of his delusion. "Oh, sorry." Elijah's voice was filled with embarrassment as he finally let go of my arm and refocused his attention on the stage below. As the chatter in the crowd began to simmer, allowing Tess to regain the attention of the audience, Director Goodsky silently vanished from sight, slipping away like a phantom in the shadows. Tess spoke eloquently enough to surprise even me. She was only 13, yet she had the ability to draw the crowd's full attention with her unadorned words filled with maturity. She spoke about the principles of this academy, how this was a holy ground where students should feel safe to walk freely around. Tess emphasized the discipline one would face if anyone hurt another student outside of a consented duel. While I may be a first year as all of you are, having given the privilege to be inside the academy a year longer made it all too apparent to me that there is deeply embedded discrimination against the Scholar Mage students by the Battle Mage students. I, for one, will not tolerate any sort of aggression or bullying based on the trivial fact that one is a Scholar Mage student. Tess' voice never wavered as she stood behind the podium. The crowd grew a little noisy at this statement, as everyone present had heard rumors of the hardships one may face as a Scholar Mage student. Starting this year, while uniforms and the upper courses required may be different, for the first 2 years, general education, that contains a mixture of both Scholar Mage classes and Battle Mage classes will be mandatory, for better assimilation between the two different types of students. After the 2 years are up, one may choose to switch their education specialization by taking a test, although it will be quite a difficult one. This last statement drew in dissatisfied complaints from amongst the students in the crowd. While we didn't have to take a test due to our special connection with Director Goodsky, most students, regardless of background, had to test for either a Scholar Mage or Battle Mage position. To get in as a Scholar Mage, an incoming student only needed a basic foundation of magic, which was mana gathering. While they had to take a written exam to test their mental acuteness, the practical portion of the exam was much more simple. Battle Mage students, however, had a much stricter practical exam, and actually performed basic spells or techniques depending on whether they were a conjurer or augmenter. It may have seemed like a cakewalk for someone like us, Seal, Lilia, Tess, Elijah or me, but I admit it could be quite a challenge for someone who had just awakened. Tess moved away and Lilia stepped up next. With a commanding wave of her hand, Lilia called for silence, her hazel eyes shining with confidence. She took a deep breath, her chest rising with determination as she began to address the gathered students. Her voice projected with unwavering conviction, drawing the attention of all who listened. "My name is Lilia Helstia, and it is both a privilege and an honor to stand before you today as your new student vice president," she declared, her words ringing out with authority. The students leaned in, captivated by her presence. As our esteemed president mentioned earlier, this year marks a new era for the Academy, a time of transformative changes. We are proud to announce the implementation of a revolutionary system that allows for the assimilation and freedom to move between the two distinct types of students we have. Gone are the rigid boundaries that once confined us. Pausing for a moment, Lilia let her words hang in the air, allowing their significance to sink in. The students exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of curiosity and anticipation. With an air of utmost confidence, Lilia continued, her voice filled with passion. "In addition to this newfound freedom, we are delighted to inform you that there will no longer be a limit on how long a student can attend Zyrus Academy. Previously, the professors pressed for graduation after a strict 4-year term. However, it has become increasingly evident that the skills and capabilities of many graduating mages are falling short of expectations." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, the students recognizing the irrefutable truth in Lilia's words. This was a brave new step toward excellence. Thus, the director, in her wisdom, has made a groundbreaking decision, Lilia announced, a flicker of excitement gleaming in her eyes. To graduate from Zyrus Academy, students will now need to fulfill a comprehensive list of requirements and pass a rigorous graduation exam. These new conditions have been put in place to ensure that we produce top-class mages, equipped with both theoretical knowledge and combat expertise. The weight of Lilia's statement hung in the air, the students realizing the immense challenge that lay ahead. The responsibility of proving their worth now rested on their shoulders. Lilia concluded her speech with a heartfelt bow, her ebony curls cascading around her like a shimmering waterfall. The other members of the student council followed suit, their eyes sparkling with shared determination. We extend a warm welcome to all who have set foot in this academy, she declared, her voice filled with sincerity. Regardless of your race, whether human, elf, dwarf, or any other, this is a place where you will be embraced and encouraged to reach your full potential. Together, let us embark on this new era of Zyrus Academy, forging a future of excellence, unity, and limitless possibilities. As Lilia finished her speech, a swell of emotion welled up within the students. They rose to their feet, applause echoing through the auditorium and reverberating in their hearts. After finishing up the ceremony, all the new students were dismissed to their dorms. Filing out of the auditorium, my eyes unconsciously looked for Tess, but she was nowhere in sight. Outside, the trees arched over the marble walkways, producing small showers of fall-colored leaves. The students were all excitedly chatting amongst their peers, getting to know new people. Walking deeper within the campus to where the dorms were, I saw a few female students pass us by, their gazes lingering for a moment before they erupted into giggles with their friends. Elijah sighed, his breath escaping heavily as his shoulders slumped. I feel like I become significantly less better looking when I'm next to you two. Sylvie, perched atop Ree's shoulder, tenderly patted Elijah's head in a feeble attempt to offer some comfort. I couldn't help but playfully tease Elijah, a mischievous glint in my eyes as I winked at him. Well, buddy, even if most of the girls come after me, some of them will eventually settle for you, right? I nudged him playfully, hoping to lift his spirits. Ree chuckled, a sarcastic smile spreading across his face. Well, I'm not interested in any of these girls, so there might just be more for you, Elijah. Elijah's sadness momentarily lifted as he pointed towards Seal, who stood a few steps ahead of us. Her focused gaze surveyed the surroundings with unmistakable intensity, undoubtedly searching for the presence of Sylvia. Well, Ree already has the most beautiful girl with him, he stated matter-of-factly, finding solace in his friend's companionship. Ree raised an eyebrow, a mischievous smirk dancing on his lips. Are you feeling jealous then, Elijah? Elijah gave a nonchalant shrug, resignation seeping into his movements. Who wouldn't feel jealous with you two around? Shifting the conversation away from girls, I playfully pushed Elijah, causing him to stumble slightly. When did Lilia become such a skilled speaker? Her speech was incredible, especially considering she's only 13. Tess is an exception, being a princess and all. Ree's pride swelled, evident in the proud smile that adorned his face. There was a hint of admiration in his voice as he spoke. Lilia truly stole the show, didn't she? I can't take all the credit, but I did give her some pointers. She's always had confidence in her abilities, and it was just a matter of refining that confidence and helping her find her own voice. Understanding Ree's role in Lilia's success, I nodded appreciatively. I see, well done. Abruptly, a deafening explosion tore through the air, causing us and the students nearby to startle. We immediately turned our attention towards the source of the commotion at the far end of the marble walkway, instinctively running towards it without a second thought. I don't see how a short-ass dwarf like you can even hope to be a proper augmenter. Why don't you stick to forging some weapons for real warriors like me? What the hell did ya say? Who do ya think ya are, anyway? I stopped running a good distance away and shook my head when I realized what was going on. It was just stupid posturing between two students. The explosion had been made by the human, hitting his fist on a nearby tree with mana. Disappointed, I shook my head and muttered to myself, and here I thought we would have a peaceful first day. Seal, standing beside me, calmly scooped up Sylvie from atop Ree's head. Her voice held a hint of resignation as she spoke. Unfortunately, I can't say it's entirely unexpected. But couldn't this escalate into something dangerous? Elijah scanned the area, aware that some students had resorted to deliberately avoiding the path of the two quarreling individuals, prepared for a potential fight. Being among the last to leave the auditorium, most of the students had already dispersed deeper into the campus or retreated to their dorms, resulting in a sparsely populated vicinity. However, if the altercation escalated, it wouldn't be long before innocent bystanders were caught in the crossfire. They wouldn't dare start an actual fight on the very first day, right? Let's just go, I urged, desperately attempting to steer my friends away from the turbulent scene, hoping to avoid any unnecessary trouble. Come on, we don't have anything else to do besides unpack anyway. Let's see how skilled they are. Look, the human seems to be a second-level augmenter. Elijah pointed towards the brawny human student. Observing the two challengers, I noted that they both wore battle mage uniforms, though the human had two stripes adorning his tie while the dwarf only had one. My name is Nicholas Drayle, announced the human, his voice dripping with arrogance. A smirk played on his lips as he boldly challenged his shorter opponent. Declare the duel, short ass, so we can start. Or are you all bark and no bite? He placed his right hand on the badge pinned to his left breast, a defiant gesture that seemed to mock his opponent's stature. Gonna be sorry. The dwarf, a head shorter than the human, stood his ground with a muscular build that belied his awkwardness in the blazer uniform. Despite his petite frame, his grip on the giant battle axe was steady and assured. It was clear that he was more than what his single stripe on the tie suggested. The metal badge on both combatants glowed brightly as the dwarf placed a hand on his own badge and began to chant. I, Brosnan Boer, declare a duel between myself and Nicholas Drayle. I accept the duel, the human replied, the badges resonating with different colors before synchronizing together with a loud, ping, sound. The badge on the battle mage uniform and the pocket watch on the scholar mage uniform acted as artifacts for the dueling system, creating a barrier around the users that could take a certain amount of force. When the barrier broke, the duel was considered over, and the other party the winner. It took around 24 hours for the artifact to charge another barrier where, during that time, dueling was prohibited. Mages of a higher level weren't allowed to issue a duel with lower levels to keep it fair, which was why the human had to taunt the dwarf to start the duel. The human withdrew dual swords from his dimension ring with fluid precision, assuming a battle stance. Sensing the impending clash, the surrounding spectators instinctively retreated, creating a safe distance to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. Go dwarf! Elijah started cheering in favor of Brosnan, getting dirty looks in the process. Surveying the two augmenters with a keen eye, I noted that the human was a red core stage mage, while Brosnan had yet to transcend the black stage. This should be interesting. Hop! With a fierce roar, the human activated his swords, causing a dim yellow glow to envelop the blades while the earth beneath him quivered. Jaw! The dwarf leapt up and propelled himself forward by pushing off of a nearby tree, charging his battle axe as well with earth attribute mana. Oh, both are earth attribute augmenters! Elijah exclaimed, unable to contain his excitement. He leaned closer to the action. Tremor smash! The dwarf shouted, placing his left palm on the head of his axe and making the dull glow condense. With a resounding boom, the power of the blow from the dwarf forced the human to skid back, even as he blocked with both swords. I could see his arms shaking as he grimaced. The human boy lowered his two swords and dashed towards the dwarf who was already in a defensive stance. The dual swords scraped along the ground. As he got into range, he swung up. A trail of earth followed along, creating twin blades of earth after each sword. Not bad. While it wasn't surprising that the dwarf could already use his earth attribute element, it surprised me that a human in the red stage could already augment his earth attribute to that degree. He was talented in that sense. Shatter. The dwarf's body glowed yellow as he stomped his right foot hard onto the ground, creating a ripple around him that broke the earth blade approaching him into fragments. The dwarf blocked the human's two actual blades with his axe but got a little scrape on his arm from the upward swing. Earth pillar! The human exclaimed. Following the upward swipe, he stomped hard with his leading foot directly in front of the dwarf, creating a pretty fragile column of rock from the ground that hit the dwarf squarely in the stomach. Oof! The dwarf's body lifted into the air from the force of the blow and his shield broke with loud shattering sound, signaling that the duel was over. Cheers went off from the humans that gathered, but the dwarves amongst the audience groaned in embarrassment. Elijah just sighed and started to leave, but before I turned to follow him, I saw a slight smirk on the human's face as he once again imbued mana into his two blades. That fool wasn't planning on finishing it with that. He was going for the final blow. Frustrated by Elijah's failure to recognize the human true motives, I pondered my options. Using a long-range technique would only complicate matters further, yet intervening directly would risk exposing my identity. I begrudgingly accepted that it would be more natural for Elijah, a conjurer, to interfere with a spell. There was this way, too. Sorry, Tess. Is that the student council president I see making her way over? I bellowed, ensuring that my words would startle the victor of the duel, the human boy. As I had anticipated, the human, a hint of annoyance flickering in his eyes, released an irritated click of his tongue. He swiftly sheathed his swords into a mysterious dimension ring and anxiously scanned the area, searching for the presence of the student council president. Amidst the chatter and analysis of the spectators, their conversations abruptly halted as they turned their attention, like a synchronized motion, to search for Tess. Curious about the commotion I had caused, Elijah craned his neck above the crowd, desperately seeking a glimpse of the approaching president. "Where is she?" he questioned, his voice tinged with anticipation. Oops. I must have been mistaken. Feigning innocence and nonchalance, I casually shrugged my shoulders and began to walk away from the chaos I had incited. However, my escape was abruptly halted when a firm hand forcefully seized my shoulder, yanking me back. I turned to face the source of the aggression. It was the human that was just dueling, Nick or Nicole or whatever his name was. His face contorted with a mixture of frustration and anger. He barked, "Are you picking a fight with me or something, brat?" His voice held a hint of hostility and his words dripped with disdain. Before I could respond, my brother swiftly intervened. He clenched the duelist's hand, his gaze penetrating into the human's soul. The duelist visibly shrunk under Ree's intense scrutiny and took a hesitant step back, his bravado fading in the face of my brother's intimidating presence. "What is going on here?"